Hello and welcome to the 10th video of making a WordPress Valentine's Day plugin. As always, if you would like to code with us or follow us using the code that we made last video, look in the description below and click on the link and it'll take you to a place where you can get the code that we made from the last video. So the first thing I want to do to start off with is have a look at what we'll be making in this video. Okay, so we're going to be making a simple Valentine's Day plugin. This plugin will have hearts fading in and fading out, or if you wish, you could go to the theme setting and go to the setting page, and you can change the animational style. So for example, this one will have flying hearts, and this can change the number of hearts as well as the title that we want. So all these can be changed. And in this video we're going to be looking about how we can create the animation that we created to make this widget and plugin. Okay, so our main aim is to create the animation for our widget. As always, we're going to be doing the 5 tasks. So the 5 tasks today is adding the CSS to style our text, adding the CSS for positioning our hearts, creating the hearts with the before and after CSS properties. So we're going to be using that to create our hearts, and then adding the animation to our CSS, and then using keywords, the CSS keyframes for our animation. So these are the tasks that we will be doing in this video. Okay, so we're going to start by doing task 1. So this is all the files that we have. We're going to be going into CSS and we're just going to be opening up the style CSS. At the moment there's nothing in it, so what we need to do for the first one is we need to, well, let's open up also our widget. So if we look at our widget, we're going to be adding our styling for our text in this text container. So if we open it up, we're going to add all the style. So again, we're matching the text container here within the widget one. So we're matching these two up, and we know it's a class because we can see that dot that tells us it's a class. And we're just putting everything in terms of text size. So that's our font. So we're putting the font size in. We're putting what kind of font it is. We're saying it's aligned. We're saying that the background is going to be white, and then the height and width of the main box, the main widget, will be 300 and 100. So there's nothing there that's too complicated. You should easily be able to recognize these properties and what they do. The next thing what we're going to do is just add our positioning for our hearts. So we want the heart to be a relative positioning. So again, for our heart box, the heart class down here, we want it to be relative because we want it to be affected by basically what it's in. So for example, we can't use static because we need to use both top and left when we're appending in our JavaScript. So if we go to our JavaScript, when we're adding a new class, we're actually using top and left, and so static won't let us do that, so that won't work. We don't want to use absolute because we want to put it into the text container, and so we want it to be using that kind of positioning to help us position the heart box. We don't want fixed because fixed, we don't want it to be fixed. We don't want it to kind of move as the user scrolls up and down. We just want to place it into the box. Sticky could work because it's similar to relative. However, I've put relative. You're welcome to try all these out and see how they work. So now what we've done is we've added the second one. So we've put the positioning for our heart. Now that we need to create the heart using before and after. So what I'm doing first is I'm going to say for hearts and in the particle. So remember, we have in the so what this is saying is in the particle class that is in the hearts class, we're going to add these properties. So if you look back here, our particle is here. So this is the class that we're going to add this CSS to. What this does is it's saying that this particle must be found within the hearts class, or within the hearts tags. So it has to be found within here. And because it's going to be appended into there, it will be it should be fine and have absolutely no problems. So what we're doing now is we're just attaching it. So we're going to be making it transparent to start with. We're going to be using absolute positioning, because for these, the particles, for the hearts themselves, we want to use the left and top to direct the position, not the hearts box positioning. We want to use it. Basically, we're going to be using this information and this information to tell WordPress where it is. We're going to set it as a heart color, and then we're going to rotate 45 degrees. We're going to turn it around to make it look like a diamond shape. Then what we need to do is to create the rest of the heart. We need to use the before and after properties. So what this does, so if we look here, again it's saying before this particle CSS, I want you to add this information, and after it I want you to add this information. So there's going to be two separate extra things. So again, what we want is we want it to be absolute. So we're going to use, again, allow the left and top style to direct the positioning. We're going to have to add the content property, because when we use before and after, we need to add that content. Even if we don't want it, even if we don't want to add anything, that has to be in there. We want to make it two circles, so we've got the diamond, we want to make the two circles. We're positioning it as 0, 0, and we're making it 100%, 100%. So what we're doing is we're just matching up the size and the position with the particle. So we're saying that at the moment, you'll think of it as this diamond shape, and within the diamond shape, there'll be two circles. And the two circles will have the same color. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, for the first circle, let me redo that. For the first circle, the before circle, because remember this makes two circles, one before and one after. The before circle, we're going to transform it by moving it -50 on the x-axis. And the after, we're going to transform it by moving it -50 on the y-axis. So what I'll do is I'll try and get a picture to try and illustrate how that will look like. Okay, so I've gone online and I found this picture, and this illustrates what we're doing. So we've created this first box, and this box, we've rotated it so it looks like a diamond shape here. Now, attached to this box, we've added this before property, and we've added this box, this box that we've turned into a circle by using this border radius. So we're saying we're going to make it into a circle. Then what we've done is it matches the size, the width and height as the main heart container. Then we've used that transform to push it on the x-axis, because when we rotated it with the first one, let's say the x-axis is now, let's say, this way, and the y-axis is now this way. So we can say that is x-axis and that is y-axis. So we're moving it down onto those axes. So again, if we look here, that first rotation, that has changed how the x-axis and y-axis now, kind of the position of that. This makes two circles, and this moves the first circle along the x-axis, and this moves the second circle on the y-axis, and that has made our heart shape. So that's how we've made our hearts. So we can tick off our third task now. Okay, so now we need to do the fourth task, which is making the animation for in our CSS. So again, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at that particle, so the one that we appended in the jQuery code. So this is one we've added, but we're going to say only apply this to the class, to the particles that are in both the hearts and the fading class. So remember, if you remember, when we made our widget front end, we put two classes. The first class was the heart, and the second class was the dynamic class. So whichever animational style that we added in our settings. So what this does is it says, look, check if the particle is in the fading heart, and if it is, apply this code to our to that code. Apply this CSS to that code. I'm just going to add the correct comments. There you go. So the difference between this WebKit animation and this animation is that this WebKit one is for the Safari. So I've just added them both in, so it works for a larger number of browsers. There are four attributes here. The first attribute is the name of the animation that we're going to use, and that's important, so that will have to match up. The second parameter is how long the animation will last, the duration. The third argument is how are we going to start. So we're going to ease in, it's going to be a gentle start. And then the fourth one, this is telling me like whether we want it to loop once. We're going to do it for infinity amount of time, so it's going to just be continuous. So you can change how many times the animation kind of happens. So we've got the first animation for the fading heart. What we want to do now is add the animation for rain and rotate. And again, I just need to make sure the comments are for CSS and not for the PHP which I was using before. So there you go. What's important, and I mentioned last time, was in the main widget, the PHP one, for the settings, where we went down for the, let's have a look, like the animation. So get heart number, oh yeah, select animation. So when we're talking about what kind of options we can give here, so fading, rain and rotate, this has to match up with the styling. Yeah, fading, rain or rotate. So that's the animation that's linking it all together. If they don't match up, when you put it in your widget here, it will not match up. The CSS and the HTML are not going to match up, and so your animation isn't going to happen. So you have to just make sure that in the widget, in the animation, that the names all match up. Otherwise, it will not work. So if we go back to our style, we've now created the beginnings of the animation for our CSS. So let's tick that off. And the last thing that we need to do is add the keyframes. So this is actually what makes that animation in CSS. This is a really important term for CSS, and it's really powerful. So we're going to look how we can add that now. Okay, so let's start with trying to make the animation for our fading one. So we're going to use the term keyframe. So you have to say @keyframes. Again, if you want to do it for Safari, you need to say @WebKit free keyframes. But then after that, it's going to be the same, especially if we're talking about trying to make it transparent or not. The idea of the keyframes is that you pick the keyframes that you want to create the condition for. So what we're saying is, at the 0% of this 7-second progress, I want it to be completely transparent. At 50% of this 7-second animation, I want it to be 0.8 or 80% transparent or solid. It's probably better, 80% solid. And then in the 100% of this animation, I want it again to be completely transparent again. So again, the idea is telling the computer what you want the conditions to be at the keyframes, and then the computer will sort out the transition between them. So again, you give the percentage of as the keyframe, and then you give the condition. So for Safari, we need this. For most other things, we can just say @keyframes, but it's the same thing. Do remember, you have to make sure that it matches up. The heart rain is a little bit more complicated, but the principle is the same. So again, if what you need to do is get the keyframes and then heart rain again to match up with the name of the animation, and then you tell them at which percentage at the keyframes what do you want it to look like. So the only difference is when you use transform with Safari, you still need to use that WebKit. So for Safari, you still need to use that key command to do it. And so what I've done here is I've just translated, is talking about the positioning. So at the positioning, just keep it where it's being positioned, and then as it goes up, again, I want it to, it's going to be moving up. So this minus is moving up, and at 100%, it'll move 1,000% up. By then, already it should have disappeared. So you can fiddle with these keyframes and try and get an animational style that you're happy with. Do remember the first value is the X and the second value is the Y. So we're moving it up on the Y axis. The only thing I would say is that this animation, for some reason, during the animation, if you don't have that rotate, the hearts are not straight, which is slightly strange, because without this, with the hearts fade animation, the heart is still straight, but in the heart rain, where they move upwards, the heart is not. It's slightly slanted, so you have to add that rotate command to just make sure that that the heart is in the right shape. But again, the same principle is the same as the heart fate. We're saying that at this keyframe 0, we want it this condition. At 20%, we want it this condition. And 30%, we want it this condition. And then the last one is the rotation. So to get the rotation animation, what we need to do is add the keyframes for the spin. So again, remember we have mentioned that the name for this animation in the rotate is spin. And again, we've just done keyframe 0, 50, and 100. And the only thing that I would remind you when doing this is that we set it initially for all our hearts to be initially transparent. Yeah, so which means that even if you don't want to do any animation, you have to make sure that it changes from being 0 or nothing will appear on the widget. Now we should have now completed our fully functional plugin and widget. So let's save everything and then see what it looks like. Okay, so let's have a look. So if we go to the dashboard, we need to go to a plugin, and so our plugin called Hearts Title. So let's activate it. Then we go to Appearance and Widget. So our widget now is Val Widget. It's already on there. So at the moment there's no settings there because we didn't put it there. Our settings is in the Val Day settings, so that is all linked up. I've put the title as we did it. Let's have a look. So the first one, fading, and let's say many hearts. Let's have a look. That saves. Okay, so our hearts kind of fade in and fade out. Brilliant. Let's see if the next one works. So again, we go to settings. We change it to rotating. Let's change it to normal. Let's save it. Look at the front end. So we have hearts that spin rounds and rotates. Brilliant. And then the last one, if we go to our settings and we change it from rotating to flying, let's just do few, and we save it. Oh, thank God, I thought it wasn't going to work there. No, yep, it's working, just not many hearts. So there we have it. All of our animation styles are working. Do remember, feel free to play around with, if you want to play around with the animation, you can look at the CSS. If you want to play around with the positioning or the number of hearts, then you can work with the jQuery. If you want to play around with adding more, a little bit more to the front end, then you can look at the widget, the heart widget PHP. And if you want to add more settings into our setting page, then you can play around with the main plugin class in the heart PHP. And you can add, let's see, where would you add it? You can add more setting fields here and build on the plugin widget that you've already created. So well done, you have now made your functioning Valentine's Day plugin. Okay, so now that we've finished the whole project and we're looking back on what we did, I have some concept checking challenges that if you can complete all 4, will really cement what you've learned and can build on the skills that we've covered. So, for example, number 1, task 1, add a new setting field that lets you, or setting fields that let you control the font and size of your title. Now, if you can do this, this works on the WordPress backend, so you'll get a good idea of how the plugin object will work, how you can put that to the widget object, how you can use the HTML data attribute to send it to the jQuery, and how then you can use jQuery to dynamically change it, as well as working with PHP. So it'll cover a whole range. Change the animation from hearts to skulls. So skulls is another one where you can make it a little bit easier. All you need is maybe instead of 2 before and after, you could use 1 box and 1 circle. So you can try and work on the CSS by changing the animation from the hearts that we worked on today to skulls, and think out how you to do that. If you would like a little help, I've made a HTML CSS project where I've worked with animating a skull, so you can use that, and I'll include that in the links below. Task 3, you could change the size of the front end widget so it looks more like a banner, and that will work on HTML and just the WordPress widget front end, so you could do that. Probably one of the more easier challenges. And the last one, add a jQuery statement that allows you to make the hearts disappear if you put your mouse over it. So you could do all sorts with the jQuery file to add to that. So there are some challenges that I'm throwing at you. You're welcome to try and complete them. If you do, maybe put them on GitHub and then send a link below, or on a comment to say which task you did. That would be brilliant. It would be nice to see the work that you've done. But that's it. So thank you very much. Today we were able to complete our plugin. So well done. Excellent. If you think we've accomplished all our objectives in the video, let me know. If there are any way I can improve these videos, again, let me know by leaving a comment below. If you're interested in finding out what new projects I'll make, then subscribe, and I'll keep you updated with what projects I will be making in the future. Thank you and goodbye.